Commissioners, I'll remind you, in spring of 2011, TVA adjusted their wholesale rate schedule to try to manage their peak power demands. At that time, when they were working with distributors, they said there would be incremental changes to the wholesale rates going forward in that regard. We expect, based on discussions with TVA, for the next change to occur in October. I'm going to recognize Sherry Ottinger to give you a heads up about what we are in discussions with TVA and what we expect to happen this October.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. For several years now, TVA and distributors have been engaged in much discussion about TVA's wholesale rates. And as Ms. Roach mentioned, just a little over a year ago, in April 2011, TVA abandoned their end-use rate structure, which they had utilized for almost 20 years, and returned to what we call a demand energy structure. That demand energy means that we pay TVA each month for the peak KW usage that we have, and then we also pay them for all of the energy that flows into our system on a given month. Even at that time, though, as we were putting this in place, TVA was already moving forward with distributors to talk about what would we do in October 2012. The reason for this is that the seasonal demand energy option that they offered to us in April, they had set it to expire in 18 months. And at that time, TVA envisioned that all distributors would move to the second rate there, nearly flat time of use. And I'll talk to you just a little bit about the differences between those. Both rates have a seasonal component. The seasonal demand energy rate, on our demand rates, we pay a higher rate in summer than we do in winter or shoulder months. However, the energy for the base fuel is the same year-round. On the nearly flat time of use rate, the energy rate also varies by season. And then, as the name would indicate, time of use, they designated certain hours within each season that would be determined to be off-peak or on-peak. And they charged more for the on-peak hours. So at that time, KUB elected to go with the seasonal demand energy. Our reasoning for that was that we were not in a position to bill our customers for on-peak and off-peak due to the types of meter that is commonly used in our system at this time. We are not able to measure interval hours. So we wanted to continue to match up what we pay TVA with what we charge our customers, and we felt that that demand energy rate was the best fit of the two. Other distributors and TVA, other distributors and KUB continue to talk to TVA to provide them feedback over the next year. And what TVA learned was that all distributors are not the same. We have different needs and perspectives on rates and on cost recovery and on the speed at which we want to introduce time of use rates to our customers. So, and given that feedback, TVA has now decided to provide 3 options to distributors for October 2012. And you can see here, they are continuing a seasonal demand energy rate, but they're calling it modified. The modification that they are making is that the energy rate will have a seasonal component. The summer base rate will be higher than winter, and the winter rate will be slightly higher than the shoulder months. That energy component will now be the same across all 3 options. All 3 options will have a seasonal demand rate, and they'll have seasonal energy rates. They also decided that the nearly flat time of use rate would continue as it was currently structured. There's no change to it, and it will continue to be the default rate. If we do not give TVA any indication, if we do not sign a contract amendment with them, then beginning in October, they would bill us under the nearly flat time of use. And finally, the third rate, modified time of use. The price signal between on the nearly flat time of use is very small. Some distributors requested a greater price signal, and so TVA is accommodating that. So the difference between modified and nearly flat is that the on-peak hours of modified is charged at an even higher rate than under nearly flat. So those are our 3 options. When we looked and evaluated all 3 against KUB's usage history, what we found was that from a financial standpoint, there really minimal impact, regardless of which option we choose. So our recommendation is that we would continue on the demand energy rate for the same reason that we selected it the first time, which is that it provides us a better matching of cost with our retail rate. Regardless of which option that we choose, these key points would remain. We do not need any change to the KUB retail rate structure. In April 2011, we incorporated the seasonal rates, so that is already in place. Also, currently, any wholesale cost change that we have flows into our rate calculation by the authority given to us in the purchase power adjustment resolution. So this would be like any other cost change that TVA incorporated. There is minimal impact to customers. I would like to say that there was no impact, but the fact is because they're going to seasonal on all of the energy rates, customers who use more in the summer, on an annual basis would pay a little bit more. Customers who use more in the winter than the summer would pay a little bit less. And that is going to happen regardless of which of the three options we select. And then finally, there is no impact on KUB margin. The portion of the rate that we use to run our system, we're not making any changes to it regardless of what the wholesale decision is. So we would anticipate coming back to you next month requesting authority to sign the contract amendment with TVA so that we can select the modified seasonal demand energy rate. If we don't sign that, again, we would default to the nearly flat time of use. So I'll be happy to take any questions.
When we talked about the future, I guess they're proceeding to think in terms of the smart grid, right? So do they give you a hint as to when that's going to happen? No, I forget. All right, because we will have to have a smart grid.
It's an evolution of
Right.
our business right now, and some people are moving more quickly, and some people are being a little more prudent and reserved about it. I think TVA is trying to understand the differences between distributors, customers, and create different options, but to some extent that's a decision that we need to engage in next spring in our 5-year plan about our strategy for smart grid. But at the same time, TVA is not rolling it out wholesale to everybody the same way. So it's an evolution, their organization as well as ours.
We're not going to be surprised next month if they say, well, we're going to pick a time of use.
No, I think they understand everybody's kind of on a different decision point right now.
And I will say, as far as being surprised, when TVA makes a structural change to the rate such as this, they have to give us 12 months advance notice.
Oh.
So that's why we're able to engage in those discussions. And they have indicated that they expect that seasonal demand energy option to be there for the foreseeable future. So all indications are that we're not on a fast track.
Is that seasonal, is that typical now for providers, that they're all going to that?
Yeah, the demand energy rate in general, whether it has a time of use overlay or not, that is the industry standard. And I'll tell you the price differentials on time of use, as Ms. Roach mentioned, they are incrementally moving. Even right now on the nearly flat time of use, the summer on peak to off peak is an 18% difference. What you might see in other areas of the country might be a 100% or a 200% rate difference between on peak and off peak. So this is a very modest change, and they are stepping into it slowly.
Can we go back to the previous slide here? Go back another previous slide. Okay. Nearly flat time of use. So for out the whole year, they're picking a rate, or they still modifying that?
They have a base rate for each season. And
Okay,
then
so
again,
it is for each season, and that's going to be a flat rate.
and then they lay their fuel costs on top of that. And the fuel cost is what you see in the paper all the time that changes monthly.
Okay, okay.
This is, the energy rate here is for the non-fuel portion of their rate, which only changes with their board's action.
And then modified time of use
Is the off-peak and on-peak, the difference between the two, they widen
in
the
the
gap.
day or in the season?
In the summer season and in the winter
Well, how does that differ from number one?
Number one, we pay a single rate throughout the day. And it doesn't matter whether it's 8 a.m. or 8 p.m. The only thing that matters is the season. And for the time of use, the season matters and the time of day matters, and whether it's a weekend or a weekday.
I was surprised to hear you say that TVA was listening to our input on this subject. Is that?
I will give credit where credit is due. They did listen, and they did say, you know, we are seeing different responses from different distributors, and so they recognize somewhat, again, the greater price differential have asked for it, and they've accommodated that.
And Sherry, by choosing what we're considering here, are we limiting or penalizing any of our larger customers by not having a different option, one better option?
No, we are not. Our very largest customers are set apart from the general rates, and they have the option of whether they want time of use or not. And some of them today are on time of use.
So, Sherry, when you say that there's minimal impact to KUB, minimal impact to our customers, the impact, that means, if I understand this right, that means that if we choose any one of these three, it's not going to have much of an impact. But the
Correct.
impact to our customers is going to be a higher rate during peak times, right? I mean, why is
No matter what we choose.
Okay.
Yeah. Why do we care about which option we choose when we can't marry the cost side with the retail rate side? We have a greater cash flow risk. I mean, that is the ultimate risk to us, is the cash flow risk.
By this whole program, our customers are going to be impacted.
Yes.
But whichever of these three we choose.
Yeah.
is-
We cannot avoid having a seasonal energy rate from TVA. All three options have it. And currently today, the rate we're on does not have it. We're going to have to change and have a seasonal energy rate regardless of what our choice is.
When you did your analysis of these three different billing methods, did you analyze it based on our total customer base or residential base, or how did you? I mean, I guess from my perspective, the most important thing is the rate payer first, and the cash flow thing I get, but the rate payer, is there any much, very little difference between these three?
Very little. It's approximately 1/10 of 1%. And we did analyze it for all customers. Again, we have a few customers that sit outside of this with their individual rate choices through TVA. But for the rest of the population, it is just a very minor difference between all three. And TVA, again, I think that's intentional because they are incrementally moving. And I will say, they are indifferent from their revenue to which choice we make. They have designed these rates to be equivalent, so that even though the time of use rates have peak and on-peak, when you average it out over the season, that average matches the seasonal demand energy rate.
So other areas in the valley have pretty much taken the same approach that we're taking?
Yeah, they have evaluated, TVA has provided some analysis, we elected to do our own analysis, but yes. All the other distributors are faced with the same choice. If they don't do anything, they will go to nearly flat